Young man, you too can become a hero.
Dreams can become reality. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that this is the story of how I became the world's greatest hero.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Here I am with John and our longtime third host, Vanessa.
Been here forever.
Been here since the beginning. It's been how many episodes, guys? I think
So many.
So many. But we're here to talk about, an end of an era, even though it's been 10 years, which I was shocked at. 10 years to the day. 2014 is when it started, till August 2nd of 2024. The end of My Hero Academia.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a journey. It's been a revolutionary rediscovering of a complete genre that's been beaten to death by Hollywood, that has been completely redone for the better. Has left us with, I think, a hole that'll be hard to fill for a while. I don't think anything else is really going to pick that up and fill the superhero void, much like My Hero did.
Let's not forget about Go-Go Loser. That's a superhero one.
That's not superheroes. It's Super Sentai. It's Power Rangers, Chris. Whole different category.
It is pretty crazy to think that there's no other superhero anime right now.
Yeah.
You can have them, Danny.
The big Marvel craze is kind of on a downward swing right now.
They did. They had to bring him back from the dead in order to pull themselves out of that hole. And we'll see what Netflix does with their live action that's still in the works for My Hero. It's still coming.
Forgot about that.
It's still, yep.
Hollywood is,
yep. It's still. So you know what? It's not over yet. It's not over till Netflix destroys your dreams.
My expectations are so full.
Yes, it'll be interesting what Hollywood will do to this franchise.
What do you know? What studio is producing?
Yes, it is Netflix. Netflix has the.
Is it done is it an American production, or is it going to be okay?
It's not going to be like the Yu Yu Hakusho. It's most likely going to be like the One Piece live action.
Okay.
Where they're going to take some liberties with it, which I actually enjoyed that. I haven't fully watched One Piece. Yeah.
The One Piece live action was the one exception for the rule.
Yeah, it did pretty well. I liked it. I'm excited for season 2. It's sadly no Jamie Lee Curtis playing the Doctor in it for scheduling conflicts. But yeah, we'll see what they.
Well, we can't forget about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Decent.
No, that was garbage.
I couldn't even bring myself to watch it. I'm going to be honest. I knew I was going to hate it. So
you can go back and watch that episode. Yeah, but much like you and Sai both knew, I strongly disliked most of that story in the time frame that it was told. But we're not here to talk about that, and you can go watch that in a link that'll pop up right here. But what we're here for is we're going to talk about the ending of My Hero. Kind of, wrapped up. Our final thoughts on this curtain that's coming down on it. So big spoilers right now. And I'll let Chris, I guess, with his notes, take the lead on where he wants to jump into this,
So it's going to be super informal. I'm just going to start plot and structure, and then we can move on to characters, personal reflection, specific questions. So I feel like a good first question to dive into My Hero Academia is story arc. So my first question is, which story arc did you find the most engaging and why? Whoever wants to answer that question
interviewing
first.
Us in this style.
No, we're interviewing.
Yeah, ourselves.
Well, I'll just jump in saying the final war, that last arc, was my favorite. Like, it had highs, it had lows, of course, but I think that it really was able to like get to the heart of the themes of the series. I think that it had a lot of really like striking emotional moments, some amazing action. Like, it kind of, I mean, it went on for years, which covered a lot, but I just think some of my favorite moments are from, the final arc of the whole thing.
I don't even remember. Chris, do you know off the top of your head how many arcs or Vanessa there were in total for the series? I can't remember.
The number I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know the number. I honestly
trying to
remember some of the arcs.
I forget what it is, but I'd say my favorite arc of it was the one with what was the villain? Overdrive, the one
Overhaul.
with the plate.
The
Overhaul.
Shia Saikai arc.
Yes, that arc I think was the real like rev up for me, and just like we got to see Infinity 100%. We got to see just like some amazing battles, and just like I think overall arc development of everybody, and just introduction to new characters, and exploring that world and everybody that came around. I think that was also where we got to see, what was it, Night Eye, his sidekick during that arc too. Yeah, that was all really great.
That would be my second favorite arc. Also, like, the animation in that end fight is probably my favorite moment from the anime, when Deku versus Overhaul with Eri on his back. I think how they
that's the only point we get to see 100% Deku. 100%.
I know, which is crazy.
We go 430 chapters, and then we saw 100% halfway through.
Yeah.
I would say, what is it? Hori Koyashi, that's his name, right? Horikoshi. I think his biggest villain in writing this whole thing is pacing. I feel like he has so many great ideas in such a expansive world that he like wrote out all these arcs, but he kind of forgot about a lot of things that he wrote and put in there. But he is definitely pacing, I think, was my biggest issue, and his biggest issue with everything. Because it's just so much. It's a massive world for one person to kind of literally do what whole giant corporations do. Marvel and DC literally have the same equivalent size of universe and characters that he's all writing and keeping track of in his head of one person. But it would have been, if my fan can pop out, it would have been nicer to see, because I didn't realize, I was doing some research and going through that all this takes place within the first year of their. So I don't know how I didn't remember that, but our whole journey
Not
is the
whole
first
journey. So by the time they
80%.
The final war technically takes place when they would have started their year.
Exactly. So. But they don't officially. Chapter 424 is the confirmation, right? Hey, we're now starting the school after all the bullshit that just happened to us. But for that to, which is crazy, like you would think that in thinking of like other, YA kind of supernatural and superhero stories, kind of like if you were to compare it to like Harry Potter or something, that if he could only have like broken it up into like the school years and us to get more, I feel like we could have gotten so much more exposition and kind of expanding upon those. But it's still a great.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because the arc that had the potential to be my favorite, but mostly had like a lot of pacing issues, was the Vigilante Dark Deku arc, where he went on his own, and like love that so much. I love the Vigilante.
That was so short.
It was so short, and it was like after 2 chapters, it was like trying to act like Deku had been doing that for months, but it's like he's been doing this for a week. Like,
that was definitely way too short for what it should have been, and should have been way darker.
Yeah.
And it rushed into the final battle way too quickly for me.
The point where I started getting lost in the story, like after that, whole final arc is like so many chapters, and while if you like read it a couple times, but like my first read through of those chapters, I was like, what the hell's going on? And upsetting for me. So this last arc was my least favorite, just because when I read Jujutsu a lot of the thread.
I stopped
like,
after the
turns.
Shibuya incident. I
Yeah.
could not.
Yeah, I couldn't keep going with the manga.
But that's how I felt like reading this
Yeah.
My Hero arc.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like many jumps to different things happening at once. Just didn't like the pacing of it.
Yeah.
So for me, my favorite arcs are tied between two.
Okay.
Really enjoyed the arc. I thought that was really cool, especially with how it ended. And the other one, Endeavor Agency arc, where Endeavor's like for a certain amount of time. So it's got to be between. That's just when I was like really, really invested in My Hero. And they stick out to me the most when I think about all the other arcs that happen. There's a runner-up for me. I forget what it's when they're in the camp and Deku faces off Muscular
the
for the first
camp.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that one a lot too. Just because like that fight sequence with Muscular, just I don't know.
I know that's crazy to think. Like I was still and for that story to come out and like just pretty much break the industry with what it had. I mean, like looking at Horikoshi's kind of like history, he's pretty much, this was his like flagship series. I think he put out 2 other series before, all serialized by Jump, but this was like the series to make his name, and pretty much talked about all of his inspiration from Naruto and all the other shonen series of the 90s that like brought the front. Yeah, was pretty much his biggest inspiration, his biggest hero for it. And Kishimoto actually, I think, after the first year, wrote Shonen Jump like a big like congratulations, like I love what you're doing and everything excerpt for him, which was pretty cool. But you know, he could have went another 5 years. He could have paced himself a little better, given us. Yeah, for My
I will say that
Hero.
he was having health issues. There was
Yes.
during the final war arc, because I was like in the leaks that would come out,
Mhm.
you know, waking up in the morning because I couldn't stay up late enough for them. But like there would be some time, I'm just thinking in like 2022, 2023, you'd just be like, oops, prize break because Horikoshi is sick, and people being like, I
Yeah.
really hope he doesn't work himself to death because that's the thing that happens in this industry.
Exactly. He fell victim to
Yep.
what all the greats do, but
Yeah.
that's what happens. You know, I've been in Tower.
more of a reason that, you know, he should have paced himself. He should have completed it in, you know, 3 major arcs. This is year 1, year 2, year 3, taking a break off in between. You know, the fans can get all angry and everything that, but he would have. I know, but I did see a lot of the stuff that you're referencing, Vanessa, of like him getting sick, a bunch of like, you know, as that midway point through of the series came around and people started like losing their enthusiasm with like some of their choices and being bad fans,
Yeah.
essentially, and him talking about things too of like the death threats he would get of pretty much ships that people were like, you better not make such and such end up together, but not this, which I wonder how much of that, I hope it didn't ruin like what his idea of like wanting to do as an ending, and what like he was just like, you know what, if nobody's going to like really fully appreciate it, of like what to kind of skip over and focus on,
Yeah.
if that had any of effect.
Well, he
which-
didn't make anybody canon in the end, which honestly I'm happy for.
Yeah,
I'm
he was
happy for it.
very
See
neutral.
enough teenagers fighting on the internet about ships that I'm like, I don't need anything to be canonized.
Yeah.
So
Canon.
All right. Well, I was going to, you know, ask a question. My second question was going to be about and structure, but I think we just talked about it. So now I'm going to move over to my other category, which is themes and messages. So this is Hero Society. I know we just briefly talked about, we started recording. My Hero Academia, notions of heroism and what it means to be a hero in society. Because for me personally, I think My Hero Academia a pretty decent job with what it is to be a hero in their society. You know, you could apply those certain things to like our world or other superhero worlds like Marvel. You know, these are pro heroes that work obviously for money, but also want to be a hero. And they touch on themes of why they are doing this, like for society, and how their work helps people, but also there are some heroes that do it for other reasons, like fame. And like Bakugo, I think his, like, in the beginning, correct me wrong, but
Well, I think he wanted to be All Might. He was too cool to admit that he wanted to be Deku. He wanted to be that forward-facing, nerd and talk about all of his like hero and geekiness of like becoming that, but because he is who he is and the nervousness that I think anyone can find from like fully expressing who they are, he just put on that cool Kanchan bravado, and just that's the character we got to know, instead of like being able to fully articulate his emotions and wanting to be like, because I'm sure at the end of it he could definitely be that soft-hearted hero with a heart of gold, but
for sure.
he's too scared to do any of that.
Yeah, and that like his perspective gives us a warped perspective. He wants to be a hero. And I think the last chapter, the final message of what it means to be a hero in society, or it makes it come full circle, because it starts with, the first chapter is, this is a story on how I, Deku, became the world's greatest hero. And spoiler, very last chapter, it turns into, this is how we became the greatest hero.
Yeah.
And that's not just heroes, it's regular people who don't have.
Yeah, and going off of that, like one of my favorite themes is that like love All Might, fantastic character, but like having an All Might or a Superman does not help society. It means that too many people just rely on that one figure, and other people like the Shigarakis, the Togas, the Dobbies, like they all suffer for it because there's not enough normal people willing to help out. And so that's why I think, this hurt me that Deku had to give up One for All, but like it was important, like that Quirk had completed, he had to give that up in order to, it did its job, and it didn't have a place in the world, because if it did, it would have continued the All Might, one symbol at the top.
I said that to someone yesterday, I think, like literally just thinking about how it did. And I didn't even think about that. So the question was asked, what happened to Deku? Why did he lose powers? And I was explaining what, and then I realized that's what the purpose of this job, and that's not even there anymore. And that revelation, like, appreciate the ending a little bit more. And I think like that chapter does a really
pacing. Well, if anything, Hope, like I said, Naruto was one of his biggest inspirations for this, and they kind of had the same thing too with a pacing issue. And what they got to achieve in the animation was a time skip where they zoned in on each of the characters and what they've been doing over the last couple of years, leading up to, spoilers if you haven't watched it by now, Naruto and Hinata's wedding. Yeah. But they focus in on everyone and like give what the creator couldn't do in the story, because he like wrapped it all up, and like he was happy with that too, because it got to give the audience more of what they wanted to see that he couldn't put out there in a great like visual format for them. So who knows, maybe we'll get something like that before we get the final chapter. We'll get like the in between where they'll do like 3 or 4 episodes where it's like, hey, here's us wrapping it up on a bow for you, and adding more context, which would be nice, because I think we've got one last season 8, that should be airing all of next year, and then the movie, which is coming to the US
I think
in a month. Yeah, in a month or two. Which, yeah, just debuted in Japan, the 4th installment, which is crazy to put out the final movie right as this ends. I know, like, in the anime it hasn't ended, so it's like, it makes sense, but still to be like, yeah, the story's ended. Now let's give you another movie that's going to be snuck in between.
So, because you brought that up, I was going to ask this question
I
later.
triggered Chris's trap card.
Yeah. So I was thinking, like, the series obviously ended with a lot of plots unfinished for certain characters. So, you think those open-ended...
I don't think that there's going to be a spin-off series, personally. I'd love to be proven wrong. I think that there's just going to be, same with any story that has dozens of characters, there's just going to be some open-ended things. I mean, I think all the important character stories have been wrapped up. They're, if there's somebody major that I'm forgetting, remind me. But I feel like all the important ones are wrapped up.
Yeah. The big ones. I think he wrapped up the main information he wanted to, and he even left like things in the last chapter open-ended for you, the fan, to kind of fill in the blank. There were things that even I was going through, and through this whole week I've been listening to other people's like thoughts and everything on here to like bring up I'll share this. I have the chapter up right here to bring up like this and going through. There were like little things that I feel like are open to interpretation. Oh, I landed right on the page that I wanted to be. Perfect. So like we see they never go into like, he had been teasing things of like a ship between Ochaka and Deku for like forever. And I think because so many people were kind of like, I want this and I want this. Like, if you look close into her, there's no information of like what happened, and even a chapter before where they kind of like rush to like meet each other, and you think it's going to be the big reveal, the big like confession, which doesn't happen. But you can see she's wearing what looks like Deku's old mask.
Well, I will say to that, though, it also looks the same mask as Ida. Like, it looks just kind of like a generic mask.
But see,
but then
I can zoom in. Yeah, I think that's like what I'm trying to get at is like, he's left a lot of things open. Like, there are people.
But then I will also say in the panel where Bakugo is reaching his hand out, his gloves are clearly styled after Izuku's old uniforms, gloves as well, if you want to be doing the comparison of
so like kind of styling there. And it could be, but like that's what I'm like getting at is he's kind of leaving things open for, I think, the fans to interpret whatever happened in that gap for people to kind of come to their own conclusions and make their true ending of like what My Hero is and like what happened and things like that. And maybe he'll put out more. Maybe he'll do, like, after a long break, we'll be like, hey, here's a couple extra chapters of like what happened in between or like what's been happening. But I think he's done it so people can leave it up to their imagination in a sense, but still get like, it's all true to err on the side of, being a people pleaser, I guess.
Nothing denied, nothing confirmed.
Exactly. But yes, well, that's where the
Again, honestly, I'm just happy that no ships were made canon, because I spend too much time on Twitter and it would just be so annoying.
And I think it would probably drive the community at conventions even crazier. We saw what happened in Fan Expo in Philly. With how fans treat ships inappropriately for our poor voice actors who bring us much joy. But yeah, I think it was a
Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear everyone's. But before we get there,
I really do think that is one of the greatest character arcs. It's one of my favorite character arcs. And seeing him go from this, little twerp, this bully, to sacrificing himself, dying to help the cause and coming
He
back
should have
from
stayed
that.
dead.
And, I understand, because I do think that to have a truly like compelling character death is rare. I feel like, especially in like manga, it's rare. It doesn't happen. So I totally understand why a lot of people wish that he stayed dead. But
Mm.
I do think that that was symbolism for the death of his ego, for him to be able to come back and fully embrace who he wants to be as a hero and grow from there. And I just think that when he comes back and his fight with One for All for One is so good. And I'm just like, yeah, I love that he's back. I love that he's here, because that fight is so much fun.
That's a really good point.
Cathartic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because again, I understand wanting that like actual impactful, like emotional moment, but I do think that there is a purpose for him to come back.
Yeah. Because I think it didn't necessarily have to be him, but I feel like when you're killing off like villains left and right, and we get like one major hero death of a Nightshade, Night-Eye, which I think was greatly impactful, because you saw how it impacted Eraserhead and the speaker guy, and just like the heroes throughout of seeing like these, and the death of Midnight, yes, too. Like those deaths, like impactful through it, and like you look at shows like Jujutsu Kaisen, which doesn't give a crap and will kill people left and right too egregiously. I think there's that will do that, but I think they had more room to do things like that with how they were going so hard with villains, and just to show the struggle of where they were in the world of like, hey, we need so many heroes because like the world is a dangerous place right now. This is the whole point of like what they're doing, and leading up to more impactful of like, hey, we don't need as many heroes anymore. We don't need as many of this. Like the world has changed and things like that. But somebody could have died. Somebody could have died in that whole battle.
Well, villains all.
Yeah, it was a hero could have died in that whole battle.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, compelling wise, I think would be Hawk and Todoroki. I feel like were two characters that they're short backstory, especially Hawk's, with his whole thing of like you finding out that his number one hero has been Endeavor the whole time, and like the whole story that I think is fantastic, and just like, because that expands more of like, well, not everybody cares about All Might. Like there are more. That's why we have the ranking system. That's why we have like everything else going on in there, and just showing like, which like showed even more of like what Endeavor's side of things, what he's been doing, and how the public has viewed him, and what his true fans have viewed him as, of like you getting to see multiple sides of him and everything he's doing and how they all weave together. And I think Todoroki's just whole family arc was just a really cool idea to show the darker side of the heroes, and then even in those last 5 chapters showing the family coming more or less together. In a sad way. I wish we would have gotten more Dabi and Todoroki just like fights, and that's again, pacing is the biggest villain of this series. But yeah, those I think were my two unexpected, especially too that first battle that between Deku and Todoroki, I think like was one of the craziest things that like anyone has seen in a series, and it just was a runaway show. Like, yeah, all these characters matter, and they're not just background characters, and you're gonna see more of them and things like this. But yeah,
for me,
it is really good. I just think it's funny. I feel like he's probably the most people hate him, and a lot of people love him.
I think.
Yeah, I love him too.
I think the best thing I've seen, Chris, and I've sent you, is somebody taking the Kendrick Lamar song and syncing it up to the cuts of everything about him and his family tree. Meet the Grams. Yeah.
Oh, I think I've seen that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I would have loved to see more of Class B. Yeah, and that's where I think, and to, I guess, throw a quick like thing up in there of, I think
Abara in Class B with the vine hair. She was supposed to be in Class A, but Horikoshi did not want to draw her hair all the time, so we put her into Class B, which makes me sad because
Oh my God, it
I think
is.
she's a really funny character.
All the little snippets we see of like that class are like they're really cool, and the personalities of them. I think his pacing, but like two, I lost my train of thought of just all these other heroes. Just if we could have expanded more on them and seeing more of them would be really cool, and especially too, what's his name with the copy ability? Just seeing him at the end of just like literally going full like, I'm the protagonist here.
Yeah.
This is my this.
I love that he's annoying, honestly. Like, he's delightfully annoying. Yeah. Oh my God. Why am I forgetting his name?
I don't think anyone was unnecessary. I just think everyone was maybe overthought at a point where he thought he had a different outcome that he was working towards, and we never got to see all their full potential. And also too, like, you can't in that amount of time give everybody their own arc.
Yeah. I would say the character, kind of twisting the question a little bit, the character that I wish had a better resolution was Kurogiri. Did y'all read the Vigilantes manga?
Yes. Yeah.
Highly recommend. It's really good. And it's also nice to kind of get some bigger world building.
Yes.
But you get the background of what happened, with Aizawa and... Okay, yeah.
That happened in Vigilante.
Yeah. Which is also something I think it's interesting because after watching it in the anime, I was like, I need to read the Vigilantes manga now to find out what's happening. But I was hoping for more conclusion with Kurogiri at the end of the final battle. I think that the potential was wasted a little bit.
I guess to twist Chris's question even more, pull up my note I have here because I was going to ask it. What unfulfilled idea would you like that
the racism
Horikoshi,
subplot line?
Horikoshi like came out with? Would you like to have seen him expand more? Like
the
he
racism
introduced so many
subplot.
things. Yeah, that's literally in the opening statement from Deku. Not all people are born the same.
It feels like it could have been such a good like with the mutants and the heteromorphs as they're called.
I mean that's like if we look at X-Men, like
I feel like it's just this little drop in the bucket in the final arc where I'm like, what the hell why are we doing a racism subplot right now?
There was literally a anime from the spring season we watched. There was an isekai. I don't know if you remember, Chris, or
I remember
that. Literally, they literally bring up this whole subplot of like racism with like beast men in like this fantasy world, and then he gets transferred to a world that has no racism. And it's just like, why did you spend so much time with this? He literally like tells his guy, it's like, no, none of that matters
they
here.
Spent a lot of time.
I think if we could have gotten to like see like more of the U.S. hero society and more of like other countries, that would have played such a bigger role in it. And again, that's like it's one man creating his Marvel and DC, which I'm sure maybe a couple years from now we might get more spin-offs. I would hope. I can only hope, like we did with Vigilante, and like that'd be cool to see, like maybe like in early days of All Might or in America, which we got teased in the first movie, and just like more of that. I feel like that could have expanded upon those things. But yeah, those things for me, it would have been the Doomsday Quirk.
Oh yeah,
the whole idea that like every generation, the Quirks get more out of hand. Yes, and it keeps going. The whole thing when they babysit the middle school kids and all their like class and literally are getting like their butts kicked by them. They talk about all that in there, and even in the movies too. I think it was the second one that they talked about like it just kind of felt very lackluster to be like, hey, this whole thing about like the Singularity and with All for One, and just kind of never really delivering on it or like talking about more about it. I just would have really liked to see.
I think it's an interesting part of world building, but when you have this like really grand, epic idea that you can do something really cool with, and then it's like, oh, it's just background world building, don't worry about it. And it's like, that's it.
Yeah, it's like,
That's it.
I guess we'll never see anything of it. Or like, yeah, that's a cool idea, but I'm not really seeing it move in that direction. But yeah.
Like it's not even worth it to bring it up if you're not going to do anything with it.
Exactly.
I agree 100%.
Did you have anything specific, Chris? Or I know you wanted more racism.
I want more.
No.
I will also say, adding in, so my absolute least favorite part of the ending, the second to last chapter, how it's just like, oh, and now everybody in society is nicer.
Yes.
Like, I understand, like, that's what, like, a major theme of, like, pushing to make society better, which was all great, but then that theme felt so rushed at the end. How, you know, Uraraka's crying.
Pacing.
Exactly, pacing. And it's just like this random child who's like, I'm horribly abused. My family sewed my mouth shut and now I can escape. And then the old lady just, hello, child, we will help you now. I'm just like, whoa, okay, this theme is just.
Yeah.
And
I
now
think,
everybody's better. Now everybody can treat each other nicer. Like,
yeah.
that's,
And it's
really?
really hard to push that narrative, especially too with like, well, that's cool for them, but what's going on with the rest of the world? What's like, I'm sure that's not the same story being told or everywhere else, but yeah, it's hard to push, especially too of just like, because they don't really, they talk about how like the decline has gone down, but they don't really show or like really give you a baseline of like, hey, this is kind of where it's gone. Just like less people have been heroes, but we end with also too everybody at the end running out to go be heroes. But what type of hero is that? Like, how much is it necessary anymore? It is a very hard thing, and I mean, I think also with it too, he could have tied it into the singularity of like, you know, it's something that we really don't have control over. It's going to keep evolving and changing, and I would have liked to see that be I think I told you too at Otakon, like that to be like the villain's still last spark of like,
Yeah.
you can't control everything.
Yeah.
Personal reflections.
Favorite character.
I mean,
I love so many of the characters.
Yeah.
Honestly, Aizawa, one of my favorites, absolutely. I mean, especially after reading Vigilantes and getting more of his backstory. But I do love how he comes in and is very, like, contrary to the All Might figure, to, like, even, like, Mount Lady, who, like, comes on the scene and she's like, I want all the fame in the press, blah, 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 where Aizawa is just, you know, what do they call him? He's an underground hero. He stays away from all of the cameras and everything and just does his thing. And I also just love a parental figure, a non-biological parental figure, taking care of all the rowdy children.
I don't think anyone really changed in a way that I would say I really disliked. Everyone, I think, was pretty true to themselves. It's just things that they got to or started to explore, I just wanted to see more of. And of the pacing. It's just that, like, there are characters that get to certain points and, like, have relevant, like, epiphany moments where it's just like, oh, okay, this is really great. And then it's moving on because we gotta get to the end, folks.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, and also like characters that I always enjoyed, but I appreciated the more the story that went on. Like Shigaraki, I think, is such a compelling and excellent main villain. And I do love that, you know, All For One, like this big bad. He's the boring one. Like, he's honestly, he's just like very generically evil, which I'm fine with. I don't have an issue with that. But then
I would have,
But
sorry,
then
I'll let you finish.
Oh, you're fine. You learn Shigaraki is this heavily abused and groomed little boy. And honestly, I didn't want him to die. I was really sad. Like, that was one thing that I was upset when he died. But yeah, Shigaraki was somebody that I always like really enjoyed him as a villain. But when you learn his backstory, you're like, oh, this is like actually incredibly tragic.
So this is actually something I retract what I say because of this. I 100% agree with that. I would have liked to see from what we saw, him truly become the villain, because he's been puppeteered by All For One the whole time, and even up until the final arc too. It's his pretty much ghost is still like in control of him. He never truly becomes the villain. He's teased as the villain, and then we get introduced to know All For One's been kind of puppeteering and running the show for the whole time. It's a whole Palpatine and Kylo Ren thing of just like, he's never really the villain, but all these things. And one thing I really hate is in the Hollywood, it's kind of pushed a lot, is the whole, well, nobody's truly a villain, everybody's redeemable. I would have liked him to, in a sense, like, yes, we see all the backstory of everything that's driven him to it, but kind of just accept who he is and what's happened. And I would have liked to see him be a real villain of everything, and just like double down and the like, haha, no, it was me the whole time, All For One, who's ruined your life and everything, and even maybe get to a point where he's destroying All For One and like assuming that, just like really showing that, like, because they had such like crazy moments together, him and Deku, and then it's just, it's still at the end, it's like, no, it's all about All For One.
Yeah, All For One coming back that final time, I was sort of like, I want this to be Shigaraki.
Yeah.
Because like All For One's still around, and like,
I don't know if he got that idea from Star Wars, because I read that he is a big Star Wars fan.
Well, so many of the names are taken from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a lot of there's the Admiral Akbar. There's like a 1-to-1 character.
Yeah.
In My Hero, that's basically like the same look as Admiral Akbar. Yeah, there's a lot of that. So, yeah, there's I don't know much about Star Wars, but I'm pretty the city that they're from, Musu Tafu, if I'm saying that correctly, is like a Star Wars place. The train station in like the very first chapter is, I think, like a Tatooine station.
I would not be surprised. Yeah. I'm not a huge Disney fan either, especially the last ones. But yeah, he's a big fan. I think he said also that like influenced him a lot, and I think that influenced with the villainry of it, of like that final battle. But yeah, I just wish we could have seen him be a true villain, just like true villains in general, or I feel like are very very rare nowadays, of just like getting that true evil person that just wants to do evil for being evil. And it's just like, yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, he wanted to be reconnected to his brother. That's the thing. There was like this weird emotional incest plot line with that as well. How the younger brother, he wanted to be reconnected with his brother.
Some weird incest BL stolen.
That's like his brother.
His brother was stolen from him by some other character, which they clearly were like hinting at a romance.
Yeah.
And then,
if there's any romance that has been hinted at, it is between those two.
Well, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I can say favorite characters has been, like, in the very beginning, my favorite character was Todoroki. Just he was like the coolest out of all the other main characters I'm used to. I thought his powers were really cool, hot and ice, and it was cool that he couldn't even use his ice. Right? He couldn't use ice. No, he couldn't use fire.
No.
Yeah. Well, he didn't.
No, he didn't want to use fire.
He didn't want to.
I was like, wow, this guy's cool. He could do so much. But then as the show went on, like, as I mentioned, Endeavor, I think he had the most compelling. He became my favorite for that anymore, because I think I hate that character.
Mineta, he's just a joke character, but yeah, I feel like he is the one that everyone's like,
hey,
yeah,
he
fuck
bled
that kid.
For everyone during that one arc that I can't remember, when he rips them out too quickly.
Yeah, fuck that kid.
Well, I think there a large portion of the class was there for like teeing up specific moments. Like, I don't think what's his name with the laser beam belly, I think that, I don't think he didn't pay off his whole thing, at least in my opinion.
Why not?
I think it was a cool idea, but it was just, I think it was written weird in a way of like, I thought the whole kind of episodes where he was kind of like lurking over Deku specifically and going from there. I felt like there should have been, and maybe this could have tied into a bigger betrayal, like maybe a death or something that kind of would have like
You just want
pushed him.
somebody to die.
I wanted something to die. I wanted somebody to die. But yeah, like a bigger reveal / like betrayal to like kind of really define his character. But it was just kind of like, well, we understand because they gave him his quirk, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so I mean, his parents, they're rich
Yeah.
or whatever, and that Aoyama was born quirkless as well, and that his parents, wanted him to have a quirk.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, his parents wanted him to have a quirk, and so then they were basically indebted to All for One without really knowing what that meant. And I mean, I do think it was a big betrayal because, especially when you look back and think of like the USJ and the summer camp, like that was because of Aoyama, but he, again, is a kid stuck in a position like, sacrifice my parents or do what I'm told. I think it was a very big betrayal. I also, like, I called that it was Aoyama who was the traitor.
Yeah.
There were like a couple hints, so I figured it was going to be him. I thought that was an exciting moment. I thought it had good payoff personally.
It might have just been me like not paying fully attention for like all the things that it was setting up with him over like the course of it, but I don't know. I wanted more of it.
And also Aoyama assumed that Izuku had also gotten his quirk from All for One and that they were sort of in a similar boat because Izuku had such a similar negative reaction to his quirk. So Aoyama was kind of correct, just from the wrong person.
Yeah, I think they should have given him more, I guess, time together with Deku for like the bigger thing, because most of their interactions together were like comical
moments. Yeah.
But like something bigger, maybe like a bigger like thing of them just knowing each other or having a deeper past. I just wanted that like that betrayal to, aside from like, yes, they're friends, they're going to class, they're all like essentially family. Just something that like would have hit him more at a
I mean, I think the
personal
biggest betrayal is that it was somebody in class 1A who was the traitor. It was somebody in that family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then
I thought it was impactful, and then Chris leaves us. He's betraying us.
He does, but I mean, he really had a bunch to want to go over for kind of the whole duration. But I guess while he's away, talking about just the final parts of the chapter. Let me pull it up again. I feel like it was like, yeah, we're gonna talk about this, and I was like, actually, let's talk about the everything else. But yeah, I mean, this final chapter, I mean, look at that beautiful cover art.
Yeah. Deku thankfully has a full head of hair in that picture, not that ugly ass undercut.
Exactly. All this. Oh, look who's back.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about, because we wrapped up Deceit, but we were like, let's just look through the last chapter and call out some things of it, since we didn't have your notes, Chris.
You guys could have just waited. Just kidding.
Well, I mean, we've like jumped around of everything, but we haven't talked about the final chapter. Well, what else did you have, Chris, before?
I can go into that a little bit more, though. I will say, though, when Izuku kind of went into Shigaraki's subconscious, I thought that was some of the coolest shit that the whole manga had done. Like, when they're fighting and then you see, like, the projection of Dabi and Toga behind him all big, and when they're, like, kind of tussling as kids. I feel like that, for me, like, that was the big conclusion. That was, like, again, Izuku reaching into Shigaraki's core. I loved that so much. That was, again, I feel like I've said this about multiple things. It's my favorite parts of the manga. And overall, I am happy with the conclusion. Again, ups and downs. It is, I know, John, we talked about this, how like it is of its genre. It is still a shonen manga. It is not doing anything to super break the boundaries of that. And I didn't expect it to. So, like, yeah, pacing issues and the ending is like kind of okay, whatever. But overall, I am happy with the ending.
Going on, why
Okay.
not?
I'll do that, and I'll piggyback on. Well, I'll wait until everybody goes, and then we can answer. And what would you
I
Yeah.
wish
like
the
to?
epilogue was 3 times as long. Like, I wish there was more time to get into these things. Most shonen I know just get like a single chapter after the final battle concludes. So the fact that we got 5, I will take it.
I know 5 and 22 pages to end it all.
Yeah. I wish there was more. I wish it was more in detail, but yeah, I'm overall satisfied.
I would say I'm pretty satisfied too. Like, yes, the pacing could have been better. But when I think about the series as a whole, to do. And I'm really did like My Hero Academia. I was first introduced to it, less and less interested. But now that it's over and I could pull,
You missed.
I do miss it. But I think, despite how it ended with Deku losing his power a little bit, and then getting the opportunity to be a hero again, I think that's like nice, but I would have did something differently. But for the sake of like,
No. What would you have done differently, Chris?
had the last panel,
No. You would have changed it? Okay.
oh, you could just like, actually, I don't know if there's him teaching, but very end.
Well, no, it's this where he's writing in his journal, and then giving a recap of everything, and then other students in the class. So they don't show him directly teaching, but
Perfect.
he does have a moment where he's talking about meeting up for training later, which we get to see a teaser of the boy in the basement.
Yeah, Coda.
So,
Oh no. Oh yeah,
yeah.
that's right. That's the boy in the basement.
Yeah, the boy in the basement with the scars on his face.
Yeah.
So I would have like indicated.
Tell me the page it would change on, Chris.
It's towards, like I think right before. But
Right here.
Yeah, right here, right? So, I would have alluded that he's like a teacher, and at the kid out, and he's like walking toward UA, I'd make him take a hard left to some like off corporate job, like be forgotten. Like, while he was the greatest hero,
No. His story is hard conclusion.
want that super disappointing story.
Yeah.
Get what he wanted.
Well, and that kind of goes with the theme of like sacrifice and, the whole society has to support itself. It's not about being the number one hero.
Right.
Yeah, if he just goes off and has a random job. Which,
Would have done.
something I saw earlier today, have either of you seen Gurren Lagann? Yeah. Okay. Well, I won't say specifics because spoilers, but Chris, what you said, I saw somebody make this comparison to the end of Gurren Lagann, how it kind of ends that way. I won't say too much more, but how that is a fantastic ending of just going off and doing your own thing. It's so good. It's one of my favorites. It's
I know
so
the death
good.
of the studio just happened. Yeah. That's how long it's been out. I was so mad I couldn't secure the Blu-ray box set for it because now it's like $300.
I have like bootleg DVDs of it, but they work.
Oh, yeah.
So
It was on sale at Crunchyroll for like $120, and now it's all sold out, and it's like $300 for the complete box set. But to jump into the villainry opposition of both of you, I'm gonna go full fan speed run of where I would have taken this, because it's great and all to see this. I would have done everything up until the same thing right here, But when we get to this, nix the suit. I don't need to see Iron Man. I wanted to see because we have all these things. The professor, the doctor, I forget what his name is, has been in custody. Who's the whole thing of like he was making the Nomu and replicating quirks and everything for them to have been like literally All Might working with him to develop a serum to give Deku his true unique quirk right here, and for him to continue on after that with like you not getting to know like what he would have been, who he is, or anything of that. Like now this is, and then ending with kind of like if you've ever watched Sin City, of like the end is the beginning, and like everything they're ending with this is the point in this story of how I became the number one hero. So we've seen everything, all this prologue, and now this is his story because he's been given a unique quirk of him. It's going to be his own. He's going to be out on there becoming a hero in the way that you'll get to imagine everything from there. That's what I would have wanted to see.
I hate that.
Yeah,
You
I
hate
don't like that either.
I hate that because it's
the
like,
same thing.
Well,
no,
I
it's
feel
not.
like we've shown like
Yes,
the
it is.
Nomu, like quirk development stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure somebody's taking his research and doing it more. Like, because that's what he's always wanted, and the whole thing has been like a giant tease of like him becoming the number one hero, and to being like going through all of that, and then to say like this is where his story actually begins of him going that. Yeah, that's what they just did. They ended it right
But
there.
it did end, like just like leave it up to interpretation on how it goes for the rest of time. Like he's obviously
Yeah.
No, I
you
just
gave him
found it to
is where my story starts.
I also.
No.
I don't like All
I
Might.
felt robbed right here.
I don't like All Might working with the evil doctor to do more quirk manipulation experiment stuff and then give that to Deku.
Look,
Yeah.
somebody's using it already. They're gonna use.
Yeah. Just to be like,
Like I said, Chris, it was my fandom way to go, and you just shat all over. I didn't say, oh, now we get to go see him do spreadsheets all day. Yeah, no, that felt robbed right there. But I mean, because think of it, literally the suit is practically the same thing that All Might wore. It spent 8 more years and money. He has classmates that are literally the richest like people in the world.
well,
And it spends all this time. And the only issue I have too is, what is he still? He shouldn't have stopped being a hero. Like, there are plenty of other heroes. The whole Vigilante series of people still doing heroing. Why did he? Just because so either he lost his core, and then he just felt like I can't be a hero anymore, and then
I feel like
doesn't
these are
still
things
try.
we just don't know. Like, we don't. Did he go immediately into like getting a teaching degree post high school? Did he still try to do?
We
the
don't know,
hero
but
stuff?
that's
We
to
just don't
me
know.
where that's to me where it's like, well, it makes more sense in that way of like they actually end up giving him a quirk, and that's where he decides to go back into it, because I mean he could have been doing this a while ago, from everything that we've seen so far. Like, there's a ton of heroes we've seen throughout the whole series that have been literally more or less just martial arts experts with like passive quirks that aren't really doing much for. So it just feels like either he didn't think he could himself, or like that whole which kind of reverts on his whole thing of like wanting to be a hero regardless of like the cost and moving forward with that. Like, I feel like nothing really should have stopped him, other than like I just feel like he's lost something in there and getting back something of uniquely himself. But again, this is just my fandom run. You're what's
like
wrong
it.
with the community.
I don't apologize for anything.
Thought that
That's the point of
No.
the arc. That's the point
That's
of
the
the arc,
whole
is that he
thing.
doesn't die.
That Deku changed the future.
Because
He literally.
Night Eye in the overhaul arc, in the Shie Saikai arc, Night Eye sees that Overhaul gets away, but because of everybody's collective like desire and push, they're able to stop Overhaul and get Eri to safety and have that work.
But didn't
And literally he has a moment saying like, you were right, All Might, like this boy like changed the future. Like there's a whole big moment.
That's why like I always after that I was like, oh well, All Might probably won't die because we've seen that Night Eye's vision can be changed.
And that like fully delivers on the idea of like going plus ultra. Like he above all the like
go beyond.
Yeah, and that's why
All Might have this that
that just made him lose his power.
Oh.
Like, fake fan
was like hiding behind the wall after he got out of prison, and like this was during Deku's dark.
All Might.
He would never, because he idolizes All Might, him to be the dark.
Terrible.
When I think it was Bakugo,
not a real fan,
who saw All Might's vestige during.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't All Might.
No, it was.
It wasn't.
When
I'm thinking of him when One For All is looking at him and he's getting annoyed and he's remembering the other guy who he reminds him of.
Kudo.
Yeah, that's what. But no, yeah, his vest. That was literally when Bakugo was down.
That is like the one. I feel like one of the really big question mark moments of like, why did Bakugo see All Might's vestige? Like, I love that scene. I think it's a beautiful scene, but it's sort of like, why?
Well, see, that's where I was, and I think I talked to you about this before. When I thought Bakugo was going to die, I thought that's what was going to push Deku to become like full dark and like crazy and towards the end.
But yeah, because Night Eye's vision was that All Might would die facing off a horrible villain who we know is All For One. And when the two of them were fighting, and All Might was in the Iron Might suit, and All For One was still like taking him down. There's the collective will of everybody around the world, cheering for him. And that's when Bakugo revives and shows up and saves All Might. And then that's also a really good moment because Bakugo had all this, self-hatred because he thinks that he ended All Might, was the one that caused All Might to lose his power. But then Bakugo gets to save All Might and, redeem himself to himself that way as well. I love that whole scene. I love everything about all those moments. That, again, that's like some of my favorite, as with a lot of this manga. But
well, I think we've all pretty much come to the conclusion that it's not perfect, but it's going to be up there on the Mount Rushmore of like series to just impact us all, despite
when you think
my rewriting being the best.
When you think about how some series end so like out of nowhere horribly, though, like, all right, we got off okay. We did.
All right, but we can at least all agree. Yeah.
Or sorry, continue.
I was gonna say we can at least all agree that he did get a little robbed in this ending. I mean,
yeah.
Look, he could have kept heroing. We could have gotten some bigger hint to like his life. And not just, I mean, I know teachers are more highly regarded in that country and it's a very honorable position, but like he could have had more. I mean, even admitting like, I wish I could still do this. And I mean, if we look at other great series like Full Metal Alchemist, he loses his powers. He gets badly injured, loses limbs. But in the end, he's still.
Yeah. Edward never gets his leg back. He never gets his leg back.
He gets it back, and then in the final thing, he re-sacrifices it.
He gets his arm back, but not his leg.
Yeah, he gets to marry his love interest. We as the fans, we get a complete ending. I know here there's just so much where no one's ever going to be fully complete.
Yeah.
He could do Rob, and all the memes I don't think help. This I didn't realize on the day it ended. Some pizza chain in Japan put out the collaboration with announcing Deku, a bunch of ads with Deku working at the pizza place, which led to everybody making the memes about him losing his powers.
No, I mean, those memes have been going on for a while, and like they were funny.
That did not.
for the first hour that they were around, they were funny, and then after that, we're just like,
So,
God, stop.
Vanessa, you're going to bring up something
Yes.
else.
I don't even remember at this point.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Because it seemed like you're like, oh,
Yeah,
And
I mean,
then-
I was talking about it leaving a lasting effect on us. The
I
Mount
don't
Rushmore.
even remember.
dang,
No, that thought was gone. It's
it's all
fine.
right, it's all good.
No.
I mean, every good thing ends, and sad when it does, but we could always revisit it, and leave a plug.
I mean, the movie's still here.
There's
still
always
one more
fan
season of the
fiction.
anime. There is fanfic.
That's probably what I'm gonna go do after this.
Yeah. Well,
room. Our characters just interacting with each other, and I was like, wow, this is.
How soon till people start killing each other, though?
I mean, they try like
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I wonder-
for fun.
Horikoshi would ever allow kind of like what Lucas did, where he allowed people to write books and everything within his universe. If
That's what I would love.
aside from like fan fiction, but like official, like, hey, this is in the universe.
Well,
It's okay. It's all canon.
vigilantes,
Yeah, like that,
there's-
like more of that.
team up missions too, which I haven't read team
Mhm.
up missions, but
I haven't read that one.
be curious. I think it's
There's also Deadpool, My Hero, that one chapter collaboration. Yeah. Deadpool. Yeah.
and
He
there,
meets all-
a Deadpool manga or something where they
Well,
had
yeah,
him doing
Deadpool
the
Samurai-
Dobby pose.
No, there's a Deadpool goes to Japan and he like meets the Japanese Spider-Man, who there's a really great spin-off series about her that she gets in Doc Ock, where it's Spider-Man. No, separate thing. I think it's Spider-Man Isekai, where it literally had Peter Parker Spider-Man beats Doc Ock and accidentally knocks him into the body of Japanese middle school girl, and then another Spider-Man who's the Spider Girl from the Deadpool one comes into their universe. And it's really good. It's like a whole thing about like her being bullied and his like brash superiority like makes her like take over the school and become like a quote unquote delinquent. But like all these things while they're trying to like get her the second Spider-Man back to her universe. But yeah, spin-offs, official canonness would be good in the next couple of years. But that was it. So I mean, final thought. It was okay. The end. It was a fun ride and a comfort ending for me.
Yeah, the ending was fine, but there's enough of the series that I just love and adore, and My Hero will always have a very special place in my heart.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
our dear close friend. We look forward to hearing his soundtrack in the movie, and you can watch his video here, which will be out before this.
Thank you, Vanessa, for joining us. It's
I know.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Yeah.
Filling in. I hope we didn't, ramble on too much into.
oh my God, I could talk about My Hero for hours and hours more, but so
And when the movie comes out, we'll do that again and see
Yeah.
where it fits. But any last things, I know we just named a bunch of series, but any last thing you want to plug? Any last recommendation? What should we read? I'll go first. I'm watching with Story, Sword and Shield, another series Yuki Hayashi is composing for, and it is fantastic. It is breathing life into the fantasy genre for me, which I feel like has really overdone and played. But it's like, I don't want to. It's like My Hero, Harry Potter, but it's definitely edging on to close to that, and I really like. Oh yeah, you didn't watch part 2? Yeah. How crazy was the Chuny, literally the Chuny magic exam?
yeah, I'm just rereading Sailor Moon because I bought a bunch of Sailor Moon manga at Otakon. So if you haven't read Sailor Moon, you should do it. The manga's great.
Okay. All right. Yeah, if you've made it this far, let's get a plus ultra in the chat and like and follow.